Welcome back to another explainer. Look, today we're tearing down the foundational blueprints of marketing so you can actually, reach your customers. We're talking markets, what they literally are, and the absolute art of market segmentation. Let's get right into it. Okay, so let's kick things off with a pretty crucial question about the ultimate marketing trap. Can you successfully sell the exact same product to every single person on Earth? No way, right? The short answer is a hard no. I mean, people have wildly different needs, totally different tastes, and completely different buying capacities. It's just not going to happen. So to avoid that trap, here's our game plan for today. We're going to define the market, look at the different types, understand market segmentation, review the requirements for it, and finally, check out the basis for segmenting. All right, jumping into section 1, defining the market. Now, this is fascinating because marketers and economists, they completely disagree on this. An economist looks at a market as a giant mix of both buyers and sellers transacting together. But for a marketer, you and your competitors, the sellers, you're the industry. It's the potential buyers, and literally only the buyers that make up the actual market. And that brings us to the formal definition. A market is the set of all actual and potential buyers of a product who share a need and can actually engage in an exchange. Think about it this way. If there are 100 different varieties of products made in a country, there are 100 distinct markets just waiting for them. It's a whole bunch of people willing and able to spend money to satisfy a need. Moving right along to section 2, types of markets. Who exactly is doing the buying here? Well, buying generally splits into two main branches. First, you've got consumer markets. This is individuals buying stuff strictly for personal, non-business use, like grabbing a tube of toothpaste at the grocery store. Second, we have organizational markets. This is when businesses buy items to either resell them or use them to build something else, like a furniture maker buying tons of raw wood and iron tubing. Now, if you're selling B2B, to organizations, your entire strategy has to shift because the rules of the game are totally different. In these markets, you're dealing with fewer buyers, but they're buying in massive quantities. They're usually clustered in geographic industrial hubs, too. You aren't just pitching to a casual weekend shopper. You're dealing with strict professional purchasing committees who usually buy direct from the producer, skipping the middleman entirely. Which brings us to this really cool concept, derived demand. This is a total game changer for organizational buying. See, a shoe manufacturer isn't going to buy more of your raw leather just because you slash the price. Their demand for your leather is ultimately derived directly from the consumer demand for their shoes. If everyday folks aren't buying boots and sneakers, that manufacturer isn't buying your leather, period. Okay, section 3, understanding market segmentation. Like we said earlier, trying to appeal to everyone is a recipe for disaster. The crowd is just too scattered. They have totally different motives and habits. So, market segmentation is your tool to fix that. It's the process of taking that massive, chaotic market and dividing it up into manageable, homogeneous parts, or segments. Basically, you're grouping together the folks who share the exact same buying habits or traits. Once you've got a read on your market, you've got to pick your strategy. You could go with undifferentiated marketing. That's taking one single product and casting a giant net, hoping to catch everyone. Or you can embrace differentiated marketing. Sure, it comes with extra administrative and production costs, but you're designing specific products for very specific niches. It's like an automaker building a compact, zippy car for a young professional and a totally different, massive minivan for a family of 6. Let's hit section 4, requirements for segmentation. You can't just slice the market up randomly. You have to follow a few rules for a segment to actually be useful. First, it has to be measurable and quantifiable. You need hard numbers, not just a gut feeling. Second, it's got to be accessible. Can you actually reach these people through ads and distribution? Third, it needs to be actionable for your team's size. And finally, the big one. It must be substantial. It makes zero sense to build a custom car specifically for people over 7 feet tall, right? That segment just isn't big enough to actually yield a profit. Which brings us to our final stop, section 5, basis for segmenting markets. When you're dealing with consumer markets, there are 4 main bases you can use to slice up that pie. There's geographic, simply where they live; demographic, who they are, like age, sex, or income; psychographic, how they live, meaning their social class and lifestyle; and behavioristic, how they act, which covers when they buy or how loyal they are to a brand. Let's look at a real-world example of this. Demographic segmentation by age is incredibly powerful. Think about a toy manufacturer. They know for a fact that a 3-month-old baby has completely different developmental needs and consumption potential than a 1-year-old. So what do? They segment their product line to offer 12 different toys that a baby uses sequentially, matching that rapid growth phase perfectly.
Or take behavioristic segmentation, specifically looking at occasions. Buyers can actually be grouped by when they get the urge to buy. A really smart orange juice brand might heavily target tourists during vacation season, blanketing tourist areas with ads. Why? Because they know that specific occasion is when juice consumption absolutely spikes.
You can even segment based on pure loyalty. A market filled with hardcore loyalists, think the toothpaste industry, is full of people who buy brand A every single time they go to the store. Breaking into that kind of market as a new competitor is incredibly tough. But compare that to a market of shifting loyalists who bounce around between brands, or total switchers who show no loyalty at all. You need a completely different strategy depending on which of those loyalty segments you're actually going after. Now, if you pivot to B2B, your segmentation bases completely change. You obviously can't segment a giant corporation by its lifestyle. Instead, you'd segment organizational markets by the type of customer industry. Are they in agriculture, manufacturing, or services? Or you might segment by the buying situation itself. Is this a brand new purchase for them, a modified buy where they're tweaking specs, or just an automated straight rebuy of standard items? So when it comes down to it, market segmentation is really about ditching the undefined mass market and getting incredibly precise. Take a hard look at your own business idea. Ask yourself, instead of trying to own the entire cake and probably failing, which specific, targeted, homogeneous wedge are you going to conquer? Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.